Question 32 from the 2017 HSC paper with 4 marks. So we need to write an algorithm that does the following. So we need input integers into the program. If a negative number is input, the program stops and prints out how many positive integers were done prior according to these rules. So divisible by 2 but not by 3, divisible by 3 but not by 2, divisible by both, and divisible by neither. Now, they've actually told us and given us a function here of divisible x and y. So it returns true if x is divisible by y, and it will return false if it's not divisible by y. So I've just written out the question in text, just make life easier to read. So we're going to start off with beginning our algorithms, and I'm just going to name it an algorithm. I want to enter in, get that user input of those numbers, of those integers. And then I want to set those variables. So I've got count to div, count div 3, count div both, and count div neither. So it's clear that those are the 4 points that I'm showing. Looking at the next part, we need to check if a number is negative, and if it is, it stops the program. So that means we're going to have a loop. So I'm going to have my while loop here. So we've got while the integer is greater than or equal to 0, okay, it will then perform what it needs to do. If not, it will break out of that while loop. So the next part I need to do is actually look at if it's divisible by 2. So I've got if divisible by integer 2, then, and I've already laid out my else and end ifs. So what I need to check now is it divisible by 3 but not by 2? Looking down here first, in my else, so if it's not divisible by 2, we check if it is divisible by 3, and if it is, we add to that count. Now what we can do is we need to check for that divisible by both. So this is why I have this divisible by 3 if statement here. So if it is divisible by 2 and divisible by 3, I'll then have count div both, and now we'll add 1 to that count for it. If it's not divisible by 3, then we would add that 1 to the count for divisible by 2, and then we'll end that if statement. So that means we need to have that divisible by neither. And this is where it will come in, because we've checked if it's divisible by 2 and it's not. If it's divisible by 3 and it's not, that is where we add to the neither count. After we've checked all those if statements and finished them off, we now need to get that input again, because our initial one was outside of the loop. So we now get that user input again, and that will be within that loop, and that will continue on until the integer is greater than or equal to 0. Then what we need to do is also print out how many positive integers there were. So that's where I'll have display and then my various lines of divisible by only, and then adding in those counts. And then I'll end off that algorithm with end algorithm. So if we actually have a look at the marking criteria, 2 favorite words, substantially correct, and it needs to incorporate a loop with a terminating condition, which we've done here with this while. Okay, a selection structure to determine divisibility. So we do have selection. We have 1, 2, 3 if statements, and they are nested into each other. But that is checking each option possible of divisibility. We're calculating the tallies by adding 1 to each of those counts and then giving some sort of output.